Hello everybody, and welcome back to another Kings of War battle report. I'm Visibly Riley, and today we have Forces of the Abyss versus the Trident Realms. This battle was fought at 20 to 50 points, and the scenario was Invade. So before I get into my opponent's list here, I'd like to cover what happened last week. I meant to actually get a battle report in, but the only game I got in, the pictures were pretty poor, and honestly, just the game really wasn't worth reporting on, as it was a hastily assembled list, and it was just kind of a mess. And then when I tried to get another game in later that week, we got locked out of the common room, where I generally play my weekend game. So yeah, wasn't able to get that, so we had to wait until this Friday for a fresh game. But here we are with my opponent's Trident Realm list, so let's go through it. We've got 2 troops of Thule, followed by 2 regiments of Thule, then 2 hordes of water elementals and a regiment of water elementals, 2 greater water elementals, a kraken, 3 Thule Mythicans, 1 with nothing, 2 with Banechant 2 and Surge 7, and then one of those has the Inspiring Talisman and the other one has the Banner of the Griffin. Then we have the Siren, and finally the Thule Tidal Surge formation, which is covering the 2 regiments, the 2 troops, and the Thule Mythican with nothing. All of those gain +1 speed. So yeah, I do like my opponent's list here. The only thing I'm not sold on are the greater water elementals. I don't really like them, especially compared to something like a coral giant, which can really just take a charge, absorb it. This list can't really take all that much damage, so yeah, but it's not really my call. Oh, lastly, I probably wouldn't run the Siren over Ector personally, but I know my opponent disagrees and likes the Siren more, so to each their own. Moving forward, here we see my Forces of the Abyss list. I start off with 3 troops of gargoyles, gotta have those. Then a horde of lower abyssals. Those actually have 2 hand weapons. This is an older version of the list, and I didn't like. Easy Army is a little slow tonight. It was taking too long, so I just got this one. So yeah, I've got the 2 hand weapons on the horde of lower abyssals. Then I have 2 regiments of succubi. 1 has the Brew of Strength. Then I have 2 regiments of abyssal horsemen. 1 with the Caterpillar Potion. 1 with Wine of Elven Kind. An Abyssal Harbinger with a Loot of Insatiable Darkness, 2 Efreet, 1 with the Boots of Levitation, 1 with Heart-Seeking Chant, and a Well of Souls and Pazuzu. So I haven't actually played my Forces of the Abyss in quite some time, and since I think 2019 will probably have some nerfs for them, I decided to get them out now before they get nerfed again. I'm not against that. I think they need a bit of toning down, but yeah, I thought I'd play them anyway. I do like this list. It lacks in shooting firepower that I'm used to when I play Abyssals, just because, you can bring the 3 Efreet and Cronius list. You can also bring some Kin Chariots if you like that. So there's lots of ways to get a lot of shots in the army while still having that close combat punch, but I didn't really feel like it, and I'd never tried the Well of Souls out, so I thought I'd put it down on the table, see what it did. So here we see the end of deployment. This is, again, Invade, so we're just trying to get our unit strength across the table to our opponent's half. Let's talk about the terrain real quick. So we have 2 forests. One is in the lower left-hand corner on my side, and one is in my opponent's, at least from our view, upper right-hand corner. Those are height 4, I think, forests. Or height 6. And then we have 2 height 0 or height flat pawns. One is in my opponent's left-hand corner, one is in my right-hand corner. We have 2 walls in the center of the field. Those are height 1. On the one on the right, there is a height 6 building, or a height 4 building next to it. It's pretty small, but a little off screen. Lastly, we have 2 height 2 hills in the center of the field. The terrain here, it was a little anemic, but we had so many tables going that we just didn't have the amount of terrain that we needed to really make this interesting. And unfortunately, due to needing to keep hills out of deployment zones, I guess we didn't need to due to our armies, but in general, you really just don't want hills in deployment zones. It creates a very bad atmosphere. But we didn't put any of the rough terrain towards the center of the field, so that was a bit of a mistake, I think, in the table construction here. But anyway, let's go down some deployment, starting with the Abyssals. So off on the left in the forest there, you can see Pazuzu himself, which is that old Games Workshop Malachor model. Then to the right of him, we've got the two hordes of, well, they're headless sometimes, and sometimes just invisible boars. Those are my Abyssal Knights for the day. The ones on the left, the ones closest to the woods, they have the Caterpillar. The ones on the right have the Wine of Elgan. Behind them, we see the first two troops of Gargoyles, and in between them, the Well of Souls. Then to the right of that, we have the first regiment of Succubi. Those are the ones with nothing. To the right of that, we have Lower Abyssals. Behind them, the hero on the left is the Lute of Insatiable Darkness guy. And then we have the two Efreet. I think the middle one is the one with piercing, and the one on the right is the one with boots. To the right of that, we have the Succubi. They have the banner, so that is the Brew of Strength guy, girls. And then to the right of that, we finally have our final troop of Gargoyles. When you're playing against a Trident Realms army that has literally 0 shots, he can do no offensive magic, no bows, no nothing. Might as well just set up in a battle line and push towards the center, especially on Invade. So I'm pretty happy with my deployment. I only had to contend with some hills, and I can utilize that line of sight blocking pretty well. For my opponent's side, he has a very small, very elite Trident Realms army. Off on the left, we see the first two the troops of Thule. Behind them, the Thule Mythicon with nothing. Those are all the speed 7 ones. To the right of that, in the pond, that is his first water elemental. It looks surprisingly like a big old fire elemental, but it's water. To the right of that, we've got the two regiments of Thule. To the right of them, we've got the first horde of water elementals. To the right of that, we've got the Kraken, then the next horde of water elementals, then the regiment of water elementals, and behind them, the second greater water elemental. The two Thule Mythicons, the ones with Surge and Banechant, those are behind those leftmost water elementals, while the Siren is a model behind the rightmost horde of water elementals. As for my opponent's deployment, when you're playing against Invade, and again, I've only got the, for offensive shots, I only have the two Efreet, so we're not really in a protected range battle here, so clog up the center, get in there. So pretty good deployment. Turn 1. So Abyssals get the roll or win the roll off for turn 1, and everything goes forward. The Gargoyles on the right, I kept back a little bit just because I wanted to reposition them over the pond, so they only went 10. And secondly, I have a charge of 20 anyway, so I'm not super worried about it. I moved the rightmost Succubi as far forward as they could go. This is because I'm in charge range of his regiment of water elementals there, but not in charge range of the Kraken. Secondly, we determined using, with line of sight here with that hill, the horde of water elementals cannot see the Succubi. So if he wants to get a second one in, he can either charge me with the regiment of water elementals, or he can move forward and try to get the surge with the horde of water elementals. Either way, I've gotten snared to the front. The greater water elemental in the back might be able to reach me. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm not super scared about that. Putting elementals on 5+ to hit is just, who cares? So that's the idea there. In the center, I held back a little bit more because 1, I'm only speed 5, and 2, I didn't want that Kraken to get into me or get anywhere particularly quickly. I did play slightly off-center my horde and regiment there, so he can't fit, even if he gets the idea, bug up in his bonnet, to move that second horde of water elementals in the middle forward and try to get them into the Succubi. He can't fit because I'm slightly off center, so you'll have to either charge the lower Abyssals or into my Cav, I guess. Speaking of the Cav, they move forward, and the idea here, I measured it out, and I thought I was out of charge range for the Thule, but I might not be. So I thought I did it. Maybe I bumped it. But the idea is to get out of charge range of the Thule so they can't alpha strike me. While on the left, I put Pazuzu deliberately in charge range of one of the troops of Thule and not the other one. So he can send a troop into me, but he'll be hindered, and Pazuzu can definitely take a punch. So not really worried. The Gargoyles just sort of move forward so they can get, they can be annoying, they can be Gargoyles. Considering most of his army is height 2, or greater, they can really get into some charge from behind my line, so I'm not super worried about that. And the Well of Souls just takes up the center. He has a sliver of line of sight directly in front of him, just in case, I don't know, just in case he tries to block me with a greater elemental. I mean, I'm hype 4, so I can see over my cab anyway. Moving forward, here we see the turn 1 for the Trident Realms. You can see on the right there, he could actually get the Kraken in. Now, I didn't think he could, but after my opponent measures it, we determine, yeah, the Kraken can easily get in there. So he sends him in with the regiment of water elementals into the front of the succubi on the right there, hoping to get an easy kill off, although that's some pretty lucky dice if he does. Otherwise, most of the army just sort of shambles forward, getting ready to take its punches. On the left, we see, yeah, one of the Thule could definitely get into my cav. Thankfully, both of them couldn't, but yeah, still a mistake by me that my opponent capitalizes on here. Yeah, and on the left there, you can see one of the Thule troops goes into Pazuzu, just hoping to ground him. And that's a pretty good idea, considering how dangerous he is in the backline. So, yeah, I think for his magic, he doesn't need any crushing, so I think he just holds back, because he doesn't Bane Chant, and he doesn't particularly want to get too much surge going. Although I think he does roll one of them on the Greater Water Elemental on the right to help block up that avenue a bit more, as the Siren has moved forward. Here we see the charge, the double charge, and that one. So yeah, he actually does go for a surge here just to get the Greater Water Elemental a bit forward, because the Siren has done her little call onto my gargoyles, pulled them into the wall, and he wants to make sure to close that gap. I can no longer fly because I'm disrupted, but still, even charging, you don't want anything charging your Siren when you don't have to. So yeah, blocking up the gargoyles there with his Greater. And over here, here's the end of combat. He does 4 wounds to Pazuzu, so pretty good, but he's got 15 attacks on 4 pluses, even while hindered there. So 4s and 5s, 4 wounds, not that bad. No waver, no break, so lucky break there. He goes into my cav, does 6 wounds to them with the regiment here, and gets a waver, but due to their fury, that's not really super relevant. And over here, he does 4 wounds to the succubi and gets nothing. So no waver, no nothing. Feeling good. And here we see the end shot for turn 1. The Trident Realms getting into it. We are going to have a quick and brutal game, it looks like. So turn 2. So turn 2 rolls around, and on the left, I decide to countercharge with Pazuzu into that troop of Thule, mostly because I'm not super worried. I think Pazuzu can probably take a troop of Thule in one round, although I did forget they had Ensnare at this point in time, so yeah, you probably can't take him in one round, but he could in my mind when I was sitting on 3s. So I go in there, and in the middle I decide to take my my Well of Souls and the Cav into his Greater Water Elemental that is just hanging out there, hoping to pop it in one go, because if I do, he's you can look to the center where I've charged with my gargoyles into his Thule and water elementals. He's so chapped up there that I can take this free turn to, if I can take this free turn to kill off that greater on the left there, I think I can sort of cinch up the middle, have my Cav and Pazuzu mess around with the left for a turn, and it should be fine. Speaking of the center, I decide to countercharge with my Cab, who were charged by the Thule regiment, and I also charge in one of my regiments of succubi. Now, they were just barely, but they were in the front of this regiment, so they share frontage right there. Yep, I charge my gargoyles over there to block up the middle, while my lower abyssal horde gets a flank charge into his Kraken, which is not pretty, so it's just a lot of attacks. And I take the front charge onto the regiment of water elementals and the flank with some gargoyles. They are hindered because they're charging over a wall, but the idea here is that I have 40 shots, 20 of which has piercing onto that greater water elemental right there, and if I can drop that along with the Kraken and the regiment here, I mean, that's just probably game, because I'll have the right flank and the left flank, and the center will be bogged down for at least one turn. So, yep, just going for gold. And here, yep, just showing off the combats. I really love these new, what are those? The Northern Alliance Ice Elementals. Those are really nice models. I still don't think, you know, they're definitely not at Games Workshop quality, and they're not even at really, in my opinion, industry standard. But at least the concept is getting back there. These Ice Elementals look great. All the Northern Alliance stuff looks really good. Really impressed. Yeah, just showing off the charges. And that one, final one. Oh, I did move my my loot over here. Now this was a bit of a mistake because I decided to I rolled a loot over here, and I haven't really inspired the right side at all. I'm so used to having an Efreet with the Inspiring Talisman that I didn't even think about it in this game. So, small mistake. Yep, gargoyles falling over to fight fight water elementals. And here is the end of combat. I didn't take any combat pictures as we were it was getting a little late. But starting with the left, yeah, Pazuzu does does no wounds to the or he does 4 wounds actually. Sorry, he does 4 wounds to the Thule and gets a waiver, so that's great. Also with his regen, it looks like he got 3 off. I think he actually got 4 in the end, but yeah, he ends up pretty healthy after his regen. My Cav and the Well of Souls roll right through that Greater Water Elemental. I wasn't really too worried about that, because those Cav are, 18 attacks on 3 pluses, and then they're 3s and 3s, and then the Well of Souls is 4s and 3s with 10 more attacks, so I wasn't really worried about that. But yeah, roll right through him. I decided to pull back with my Well of Souls, because I don't want to get charged by that troop of Thule, and my Cav don't need to pull back because they're already in the other troop of Thule are already in their front, so I don't really need to worry about it. And since Pazuzu failed to kill off the troop of Thule he was fighting, they can't really reform anyway. So that's the idea. Downstairs in the little Abyssal Horseman and Succubi fight, yeah, they destroy that Thule. Now here's another mistake I made, which is I kind of forgot that how the Well of Souls works, so I should have pulled the 6 wounds off of the Cav here right before I moved, but I forgot. So yep, they're still on 6 wounds. And there's something else here. Oh yeah, I actually rolled pretty poorly in these combats in terms of like hits and wounds, but thankfully, you know, it's not over until you roll those break checks. So I was rolling real hot on those break checks, you know. Like, I think my Cav plus the Well of Souls did maybe 9 wounds to the Greater Water Elemental total, but then, you know, back-to-back 9 pluses, and it was gone anyway. So, you know, it's not bad dice until you finish up all the dice. So, yeah, in the middle, the Gargoyles do essentially nothing to I think they do 2 wounds to the Water Elementals and 3 wounds, yeah, 3 wounds to the other Thule Regiment. Neither of those are wavered, obviously, and the Water Elementals I don't even roll because I can't do anything to them. On the bottom, my horde of lower abyssals, again, don't roll too well against the Kraken, but I need a 7 to finish it off because I think I put 12 wounds on it, and get it both times, so 7 rerollable. Nailed it. And in the middle, you can see my Succubi versus that regiment of Ice Elementals, or Water Elementals in this game, plus the Gargoyles. I only do 9 wounds. And yeah, I only do 9 wounds. Oh, I did cast a Bane Chant onto the lower abyssals that were in the flank of the Kraken because I wanted to be hitting on 4s and wounding on 2s. Yeah, I do 9 wounds to these guys, and yep, I failed at 5 plus. It was rerollable, but it didn't need to be. I rolled a 4 on the first go. And speaking of, again, the hits and wounds were pretty abysmal. With all 40 of my shots into that Greater Water Elemental, I do 4 wounds. So kudos, guys. Here we see Trident Realms, turn 2. So, yeah, starting from left to right, we've got the wavered Thule troop, does nothing, just stands in front of Pazuzu, while the other Thule troop goes into the front of my horseman. Then we have one of the Thule Mythicans, the Thule Mythican with nothing also went into the horseman, hoping to, you know, he's got 5 attacks on a 3 plus with Crush 1, so 5 attacks on 3s and 4s. It's a pretty good addition. Seeing the Mythican do that, one of the Mythicans with Bane Chant and And Surge decides to go into the flank of my Well of Souls, hoping to get lucky there, or at least turn off his flight. Probably more probable. The Thule and the Water Elementals go into my Gargoyles, hoping to take out the chaff right now, while his horde of Water Elementals that saw the lower abyssals sitting right in front of him, they go right in, while his other Thule Mythicin in the back there is just in range of his Greater Water Elemental, trying to get that 4+ to get him in as well. And lastly, we have the Siren moving forward, trying to get in range to drain life my Succubi, who are already sitting on 4 wounds. Because I charged with the Gargoyles, that might have been a mistake in retrospect. I was thinking it was just free combat res, but because of how the counter charge rules work, where you can just pick it up and place the unit as long as they can land, he can just charge into the Gargoyles, which left him room to get the Greater Water Elemental around here to join in the fight with the lower Abyssals. So yeah, the Gargoyles were probably better utilized just walking up the board and making it so his Greater Water Elemental has to turn around and fight me, or I can charge the Siren. So yeah, small mistake by me again. With his my opponent's regens were really bad. I think the Regiment of Water Elementals regens like 1 wound. The Greater Water Elemental regens like 2. It's pretty bad all around. But that's how it goes sometimes. 5+ regen. And here we see the start of the combats. So this one, boop, that one, and this one. So yeah, in the middle here, both the Gargoyles are gone. Actually, let's roll, the Siren, you can see in the picture here, she actually goes for the Drain Life onto my Succubi and gets 4 wounds on me, which not only wavers me, but also heals the wounds I did to the Greater Water Elemental right there, so it's ready to go. And with the Surge 7 from the Mythicin in the back there, he rolls the 4+ he needs. He actually rolls 5 successes to get into my lower Abyssals with the Greater Water Elemental, along with this horde of Water Elementals. So pretty good for my opponent, at least on the shooting front. In combat, yeah, these guys get completely destroyed. My opponent decided to overrun. If we walk a picture back, you can see the Thule on the left there. They overrun forward, and his plan, you can't quite see it in this picture, but my Succubi down there have an easy charge into the Water Elemental horde, and he's trying to close that gap so they can't fit through. So I can't just charge everything on the table and remove it with his elite army. He wants to make it so I have to waste double charges. But unfortunately, they only run forward, I think, like maybe 2 or 3 inches, which doesn't actually close that gap. So unfortunate. And over here, yeah, he does 7 wounds to my Cav with his Troop of Thule and the Mythicin. And on the first roll, actually kills them, getting a 10+, because they're a 9+, because they're only a 14-16. But yeah, he gets the kill there, and unfortunately on the reroll gets nothing. So they're not even wavered, although it doesn't matter too much with Fury. But yeah, he gets nothing on the reroll. And this Mythicin over here fighting my Well of Souls lands 0 wounds, hits me 3 times, but rolls I think a 1-1-2 for his wounds. So I'm free to fly around and do whatever the fuck I want. So feels good, gotta do it. And yeah, here's a nice blurry picture for you. His Greater Water Elemental and the Horde of Water Elementals end up doing 10 wounds to my Horde of Lower Abyssals, and do not get a waiver here, although again, it doesn't matter too much, given that they are Fury. So, yeah, unfortunate. But thankfully, that Succubi regiment right there is not going to flank charge anything, so he's got that going for him. And here we see the end of turn 2. You can see the Trident Realms are dwindling a little bit, but they've cleared out all the chaff for my for the whatchamacallit? Oh yeah, the Water Elementals, the regiment over there. Yeah, you can see they healed 1 wound. They kill off the gargoyle. So yeah, I have no chaff remaining, and I have quite a few wounds on my units here. But with regen and the well, you never know what's going to happen. Turn 3. So turn 3 rolls around, and I decide to take 6 wounds off of the cab that I should have done turn 1 onto the Well of Souls, while leaving my regiment of cav on the left there with their 7 wounds. I don't think it's going to be all that relevant soon. So yep, just leave him with that and go into the flank of his Thule with that while going into the front with my cav. You can see that the succubi there could sneak right through or snake right through, getting into that horde of water elementals in the back. And I send my horde of lower abyssals into his horde of water elementals, mostly because my plan here, so I have a lot of things I can shoot. I can shoot his greater water elemental, I can shoot the Siren, and I can shoot the regiment, the wounded regiment of water elementals with those Ifrit. So because of that, I decide that I don't really need to get into that greater water elemental just yet. I'd rather get into the horde right now and just work on them for a little bit and hopefully just get rid of them, because if they're gone, he actually, I don't think, has enough support to work his way through my army. With my regens, I end up regenning 3 wounds off of the lower abyssals there, and that's about it, but that's still pretty good, about average for the regens. And yeah, this is showing off the shooting. So one Ifrit, the piercing one, which is down there in the little pond area, actually lying on his side because he won't stand up, he goes into the regiment of water elementals, putting them on a 3 to kill, I want to say, or a 4 to kill actually. And I decide that's enough, so I just decide take the other one, take aim at his Siren, and put enough wounds on her. It was something like 6 or 7 wounds, so pretty good there. And remove both of them immediately. So that is a big load off of my back. No Siren, no regiment. So that's great. And here is an end of turn picture again, because I didn't take too many. On the left, you can see Pazuzu had gone into that troop again. I end up doing 6 more wounds, but I double won it. So we're gonna continue fighting. While my Cav, on the other hand, decide to charge into his Mythicon first, and get just enough wounds to wipe it out. They overrun into the Thule troop there, they wipe it out, and then they turn like this because he can't actually fit that troop due to the length of their base. I mean, they're more than 50 millimeters, so he can't charge me in the rear because of Pazuzu there. He has to go into him. My Well of Souls and the Cab decide to just remove that Thule unit, although the Well of Souls only does 5 wounds, which is fine. He has Life Leech 5, so that's about what I wanted, to remove the wounds he had taken off before with his Soul Drain. But yeah, they get rid of them. My regiment of Succubi that went into his Water Elemental Horde, they don't manage to drop them. I think they only do 6 wounds there. So put him on 8. And I think his Banner the Griffin guy is the one in the back there. Yeah, so I need an 11 to get through him, I think. And I don't roll it. But I roll it everywhere else because the lower abyssals are up next. They roll right through that horde of water elementals. I think I needed a 10 because I only did 8 wounds to him, even with my Bane Chant again. So on 4s and 3s, I did about 8 wounds. And I roll a 10 first, and then I roll boxcars. So yeah, the hitting and wounding wasn't too great this turn again, but those break checks or those nerve checks, they are dynamite. It's going to be rough for the Trident Realms from here. So Trident Realms turn 3, he decides to take his Greater Water Elemental and move forward. Instead of trying to finish off lower abyssals, he goes for a flank charge onto my, or a surge flank charge onto my regiment of Succubi. The other water elementals that had been fighting the Succubi decide to just turn and fight the Well of Souls, because why not? The Thule Mythicon goes to finish off those Cav. The Thule that I double won go into Pazuzu again, and that's about all she wrote. So here's another blurry picture, I guess. Yeah, that combat, this one, that one, yep. And after this, he does 1 wound to my Cav, which is not enough to even waver them. He does 4 wounds to the Well of Souls, so at least he stopped my flight, but doesn't get him because he's a dash 20. And over here, does 7 wounds. That's just, I mean, it's only got, what, 14 attacks? I think it has, no, does it have 9 base? Anyway, it only does 7 wounds to me, and doesn't get the waiver. Again, not that it matters, due to Fury. But yeah, here is how the end of turn 3 looks. Not looking good for the Trident Realms, but yeah. Walking into turn 4, So turn 4, mostly everything just charges. I charge my horde of lower abyssals into the flank of the greater water elemental. I countercharge with the succubi into him as well. My horde of, his horde of elementals that was fighting the Well of Souls continues fighting it. I send the horseman into the flank there. I absorb all the wounds from one of the horse units. I send the horseman that had been fighting the Mythican into the Mythican. And Bezuzu goes right back into that regiment of Thule. It looks like he took 3 wounds last turn, but that might be after regen. But yeah, he was not removed at least, or not wavered. And I run the Boots guy, the Boots of Levitation guy, over to shoot down his Mythican, his remaining Mythican. While my Succubi regiment decide to actually run over and complete the actual mission. So they just run into my opponent's side. And here is the end of the turn. Yeah, opponent completely tabled. Bezuzu removes, doesn't double one it. I get both the Cav just remove their Mythican and Horde of Water Elementals respectively. The lower Abyssals plus the Succubi work right through that Greater Water Elemental, and I get enough shots onto the Mythican to force a nerve, and he's only a 10-12, so yeah, get right through him. So this is the end of the game. My opponent has no units left, and I have, I think, every scoring unit is still alive and on my opponent's side of the table. So it ends up being, what is that? 2, 4, 5, 7, 10, 12, 12-0. So a pretty big victory for the forces of the Abyss. But yeah, after how bad the nerve checks, I mean, they were great for me, but terrible for my opponent on my turn 3. There wasn't a whole lot else he could do, so he just went into stress test units, which is what I like to do when I'm losing friendly games, is just send my units in. I'll even do it in tournaments because, yeah. But I'll just send units in to get a better feel, right, to actually have some heuristic data in my head about how much a Greater Water Elemental can do in the flank versus how much damage he can take and stuff like that. It's just nice to have muscle memory. But yeah, that's the end of the battle. I hope you guys liked it, and hopefully next week we can have some more. So yeah, thank you. Bye.